Hi everyone, here today to talk a little bit about the Sailing Basics app for Garmin watches. It's an app designed for sailing racing, but you can also use it for just cruising around, tracking your activities. It all uploads into Garmin as does any other activity. If you link it through Strava, it can update into that. You can export the files and you can upload those into race queues if you're interested in doing that as well. So it works very similarly to any other activity tracker in Garmin. It's designed for the watches predominantly, most notably the sort of the Phoenix range, but it will work on nearly all of them, including your sort of your square venues. I think the only thing we don't really support is the Instinct watch, because it's got a little bit of an extra screen in there, and some of the older watches just don't quite have enough memory to sort of load the courses on, so they're not supported as well. But if you want to know, see if you can download it. You can do, it's supported. And if you're looking for a watch that is supported, there is the compatible devices here. So if you want to know which app it is in the App Store, just search Sailing Basics. It's the one here with a very nice hand-drawn image of an S80 yacht and a spinnaker. Assuming you've got it downloaded and you opened up, we'll kind of jump into it. This is the simulator device for Garmin for developers, so it's just easy to show you on the screen, but everything in here works the same way. I'm doing it on the Fenix 7 device, which is both touchscreen and has the buttons, so I can kind of show you how they both work. The design thinking is very similar to using the Garmin Sail app, so you'll see a little bit of similarities between the two. I also took a fair bit of inspiration from a few of the other apps that are out there, but just built on with some additional functionality I thought might be useful. Always keen for feedback. If there's bits about the app you really like or you don't like, feel free to either leave a review, or if you want to contact me, there's the contact developer options that you can just see in there, as well as there is a little forum link that you can click on there to basically chat with me about things that you might want to see on the watch in the future. User manual available. We'll be going through most of that today, but if you do want to download it and have a read of it, that's available there. And yeah, let's kick into it. So, controls and navigation of the main menu, pretty straightforward. You can either scroll up and scroll down if you've got touch, or down and up will move you through the menu items. Single tap on the screen will take you into one of the options, and for the watches with the buttons on there, you sort of your main in-out button will kind of go through there. If you're in a screen and it's not a menu option, so we're going into the race timer, this is another menu option here, you can click back to get out. If you're in a screen that you would use whilst you're sailing, we long press the screen, or we long press the up menu button. Now the reason for that, and it feels a bit counterintuitive, is you don't want to bump things while you're sailing, or you don't want some water splashing on there. So the long hold kind of just keeps you centered around the screen that you're probably using most of the time. So this tends to catch a few people out, and I've had a few reviews where people are like, I can't get out of your app, what's going on? Don't panic, just hold the menu button. So pressing and holding there, you're back out of it. Or if you press and hold on the screen, like I'm doing now, you're back out of it as well. If you keep hitting back on the menu, you'll get to this option here where you can exit and save the track, or exit and discard the track. So if you discard the track, nothing will get recorded in your Garmin app. If you hit save the track, it will get recorded in the Garmin app. And if you've got it set up to move through into Strava or whatever you've got exporting from Garmin, it will do so. Saves it as a sailing type app, I should say. And you can see those in your Garmin Connect website. So this is an example of one we did the other day, out for a race on a Saturday afternoon. You can see the track. You can see the elevation doesn't change, which is what you want when you're on a boat. And sort of track your speed and sort of have a look at sort of how you went through that space there. The first thing to probably just have a look at is the race timer. I'm going to assume that you're using this for racing. So if you don't want to talk to any of these chapters, there are links down below to skip chapters to bits that you might be interested in. Or as I said, the manual is available on the Garmin website that you can download, and a lot of this is explained in there as well. Race timer, basically you can set a whole heap of predefined minutes. So you can, all the way up to, I think it's about sort of like an hour that we have in there. What we found is sort of 3-minute rolling starts, 5-minute starts, and then maybe 10 or 15-minute starts if you're sort of third or fourth off in a fleet is quite useful. The one that can be quite useful if you have a really good race committee is setting a specific start time. So I know that Div 3 will start at like 1:50 on a Saturday. I can come in here and I can use it in 24-hour time. So just note that. So 1 is 1 in the morning, not 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You can go to 1. You can click backwards through this as well. So instead of clicking all the way up to 50, you can just click down. And that will now set a timer. It's about 11 o'clock at night at the moment. So that's saying there's sort of 14 hours and 53 minutes until that race would start tomorrow on a Saturday. I'll put a different timer on here so it's more realistic of what we're doing. Note with the timer, if you don't stop it, so if the timer is running and you basically go out of the screen holding the menu button and then you come back in, it will still be running. So once you've set your timer running, you can go out and you can kind of go into other screens and sort of have a look around, and it won't lose your spot in the timer. So don't be worried that if you're in the timer and you go, I want to select what course I'm going to do, or I want to ping a start line, you can do that with the timer running and it won't worry it whatsoever. So if you do want to restart the timer, just make sure you stop it first. That way when you go out and come back in, you can basically pick another time. So let's say we're going to do a 5-minute start. We're waiting around, waiting for the signal to go. If you're in a touchscreen, you still have to press the main menu button to start and the start-stop button on your touch apps. We'll go from there. Once you've started, if you felt like you missed the gun by a couple of seconds, you can adjust up or down using the up and down, or swiping up and down if you've got swipe options. So I'm kind of swiping up and down. You see it adding seconds on there, swiping down. Swiping left swiping right will add a minute. There we go. For the touchscreen, and tapping will sync. Now you can turn this off. Some people find that, again, with your touch devices, water getting on the screen can cause some sort of weird and wonderful behavior that they don't really want. So you can turn that off in the settings so that tapping doesn't sync. Just note that if you're on a touch screen and there's no other buttons, you won't be able to sync when you do that, but you'll still be able to, swipe up and swipe down to add or take seconds off. Sync button does what you would expect. It syncs. It only syncs down. It doesn't sync up. So if you hit sync, even if you're sort of close to heaven, you're going to sync down. So just watch out for that. Some of them do sync to the closest minute. All right, I have fixed the issue with the speed. That is much more small endeavor boat speed. So coming back to the race timer, I've set it up for 5 minutes just so we can sort of take you through that. Like you've got up here, you've got your current time. This is the time left for the start, and this is your current boat speed. You can leave this running, as I said, and you can go out. One of the things I'll show you is the option of basically pinging a start line. So if I hold the menu button to get out of here, you can come into tactics, set a start line. Imagine you're sailing up to port mark on the start side. So basically like the pin end is probably the best way of talking about it. You kind of get there. You can basically just ping that one's set. You can hear the timer still going in the background. So as I said, it's like cool, we're probably down about 4 minutes now. I'm going to sail off the other way, and we're going to go basically all the way up to the boat, and we're going to set the starboard mark at the boat. So we're just going to click on that, or screen is basically got it set back from there. And now we can come back into just making sure time to line is actually turned on. Yes, it is. Perfect. So if time to line is turned on, you'll see this. So now it's showing us how far we are from that imaginary line that we set up. So if you imagine you've pinged, you've got your two ends of the line. All it's doing is basically saying you are X distance from any point on that line, and based on your speed, if you went straight for the line, it would take you about 11 seconds. Now we know that's not 100% accurate because you will normally be sailing at an angle to the wind. It might take a little bit longer, but it will just help train you in, your time to line. And basically, at the moment it's saying 3 minutes and 22 seconds. So I've obviously got heaps of time to burn, like it's saying only 18 seconds away. As we get closer and closer down, we will be like, yep, okay, cool, we can go for the line there. So we're getting close. And say at about 30 seconds, you're 7 seconds away, you'd be saying like you've got like 20 seconds to burn, 10 seconds to burn, until you can basically go straight for the line and sort of carry on there. So that's an option for if you want. So if you don't set it, doesn't matter. If you do set it, it will appear in there. And if it's not available, it will just show the time up. Cool. So we basically started our race. You've got a couple of options as to when the timer finishes, it will take you to one of two screens, and it depends how you set it up. So it can either take you to, this is the sail screen, which is not got a course, or it can take you to the course screen, which will give you sort of the navigation of where you get out to there. But let's go back into the main menu. So if you didn't want to go through the timer and you just wanted to go out for a sail and record your sailing that you're doing and just sort of like maybe set the boat up and see, how the boat sails, this screen here is probably the one that you'll be using. The screen here, it's got a couple of items. So effectively you've got your main time up the top that's always visible. On the left-hand side, you've got your boat speed in knots. These little green and red indicators up the top are showing whether your average over the last 5 seconds was higher or lower. So your current speed, if it's red, is basically saying you're slower than what your average speed has been, and if it's green, it's showing that you're faster than the average speed is getting. So you can sort of see like, has the boat sped up, has the boat slowed down. SOG, speed over ground. On the right here, you've got course over ground. So this is your compass heading true because you're working off a GPS signal. There is a sort of a compass that works on the watch, but you can't use it for navigation. You have to use the GPS. There is an option if you want to add a bit of a fudge factor to this to match it up with maybe if you've got a standard compass on there, you can do that in the settings. I'll take you through that a little bit later, but we use the true magnetic heading as with most GPS devices. Again, you can see you've got these red and green. I believe I'm probably, based on the speed I'm doing, just cruising up and down the start line at this point here. So, I'm probably like following someone around the course, which is why I see those wild swings, but effectively it's saying I've gone a whole heap left. But when you're on just sailing on a particular course and you're getting lifted and knocked by the wind, or like, big headers and lifts, you can kind of get a bit of a feel for it, for that one there, as has it been a lift, has it been a knock. You can hit the down button or swipe down on the screen to change the input. Sorry, I left some debugging on. Yeah, so you can swipe down or you can swipe up, and it will change. Basically, you can either see what your average speed is or your max speed, and that's over the whole, in reference to these numbers here. So that's a sort of a 5 second average, I think it is, that it takes from memory. That's what a program is. So this is your 5 second average for your speed, and this is your 5 second average for your course. Or as I said, you can just see your max and your total distance you've gone through. Other items, you can add laps if you want to mark in your record sort of at certain points. It can be useful if you're sailing around and you wanted to like mark a whole heap of navigation points to then put back in later. You could sort of put the lap on them and you'd be able to see where they are in the Garmin map. Or even if you're just sailing a course by yourself and you just wanted to practice, it might be an option for you to use that as well. You can start and stop recording by tapping the screen, and again, another option you can turn off if you've got a touch watch and you don't want to accidentally stop recording. I did notice when I came into this on the simulator that it didn't start recording by default. The course is probably the one that people might be quite interested in. So the course view allows you to load waypoints into the watch to navigate around a course. You can host that course file on OneDrive, on Google are the two that I know how to do. You can probably host them on basically any form of website where you can make a text file available. So the format that we use, it's just a text file that you could write in Notepad, but the style that we write is a format called JSON, and that might sound a little bit confusing, but I've got some tools that will help you with how that works. But let's go through what it looks like, and then we can speak a little bit about like how you'd upload the course, later on. So once you've got it set up, you'll click on it, it can load your routes. You do have the option of just saving the routes on the device, and then you can load from save ones, or you can load every time. You do need your phone near your watch to do this. The watch uses your phone to get the internet. Like the watch doesn't naturally have internet, even if it's using Wi-Fi, it will still connect to the phone. So if you're getting some errors that say Bluetooth not available, Connect Link app not available, check the manual and it will give you a bit of an explanation around that. But it's usually a combination of, is your Bluetooth turned on your phone? Is your phone got the Connect apps running but not open? So it's this weird one, whereas if you have them open, they will lock out the Bluetooth connection and it won't let it grab the files from the internet. So you need to have them running. And that's kind of mainly it. You do get a few quirks with this, but I found that it's reliable most of the time. If you have any dramas, again, just feel free to reach out. I'm always more than happy to help someone get going with this. So I have 8 courses basically loaded. There is, I think it's Div 2 and Div 3. I don't think my naming convention was very good on this particular load. But you can see the date that the file, basically when I created the routes, which was a week ago or so, how many waypoints are in there and what the name is. And you can create the name for all of these. So I'm going to go for course 1 because that was the course that we were doing. So I'm going to select down this one here. So very similar to the sailing view that we just looked at. You've kind of got your speed over ground, your course over ground, but you've also got these navigation bits as well. So we are looking at basically how are you traveling towards the course, which is this VMC, so velocity made over course, and then the course to steer. So basically saying this is the direction that you need to go in for the watch. The little red dot that you can kind of see moving around the screen, that is the position sort of relative to the way the boat is heading. So the thing you've got to remember is you'll look at it on your watch, it's not pointing to where the mark is, but it's saying based on the direction you're going, it will be at, say 55 is 11 o'clock, so the mark's at 11 o'clock. This can be quite useful if you know what your tack angles are. So you're sailing up the river and you you've got a mark, or you're sailing up the course and you've got a mark that you need to sort of make a tack for. When this comes around to sort of around the 90 degree, you'll kind of know that you're roughly on the ley line if your tacking angle is sort of 90 degrees for your boat. So that can be quite useful. The averages are still the same. I think I've mentioned that before. You can use the up and the down to move through the waypoints. So you see waypoint 1 of 13. If I press up, it's going to skip over to the next 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can go back down as well. The waypoints do automatically change. So a setting that you've got is basically how close you need to get to that next mark before it will automatically go on to the next one. So when you're sailing around the mark, there's a lot to worry about. You don't want to be sort of pressing up and down on the watch. It will go to the next mark automatically. The big thing you've got to be aware of is particularly if it's a navigation mark that you're not necessarily going to round really close, you might need to click over onto the next one because you might not go close enough. Default, I think, is set at about 100 meters, but you can make that smaller, you can make that longer, whatever you want to do. In night racing, you might want it closer because even at 100 meters in the night, I still sometimes don't quite know where the mark is, but neither does anyone else. So it doesn't even really matter if you go around it. Who knows? Yeah, that's this one here. Again, same. If you tap on the screen, it will start the recording or stop the recording. So you can turn that off if you've got a touch. Otherwise, this button here will do the same. You can add laps. It doesn't count them. There's no marker on there, but that is adding a lap every time you click on it for that one there. And similar to the other sailing screens, if you want to get out of it, you can just hold the back button to do so on that one there. I'm going to show you what it looks like if you want to keep all of these stored on your watch. So if you're racing the same course every time and you don't have a huge number of them, you can store all of them on your watches. Like by default, it will load them every single time that you come in. So it will keep the last one that you used. So when you go in next time, it will still have this course 1 available. But if you wanted to switch over to course 2, you'd have to click down, click load routes. It would go through loading all the routes again. And you have to come down and be like, yep, I want course 2. Click on that and go into that one there. Just going to pick course 1. Because I'm running on a simulator, I just have to do the settings through this, but you would use your app on your watch, or if you're using the Garmin support app on the PC, you can do it through there. So in course view, you can change the background to white or to black. Here's the disable touch to sync or disable touch to stop recording. So if you've got a touch device, that can be quite useful. Spoke a little bit about the magnetic heading. So again, if you want to use magnetic heading, there is no magnetic heading, like it's a fudge factor. You can click on that and then you could say 5 and it would deviate the value by 5 degrees. So as I said, it can be useful if you're wanting it to line up with a actual magnetic compass in your cockpit. I don't bother, I just know that they're slightly different and just do the maths in my head whenever I give the direction to the skipper as to where we need to get to. Start times, you can set that specific start time in hours, minutes and seconds. Request from someone who was running in a race where they had rolling start times. So, you know, big fleet of boats all on handicap, and it's for line honours, so they stagger their starts. And some of those starts will be, 32 seconds or something really weird like that. So they get given a specific start time that's in seconds, not in minutes. So we added that option there for them to use that, but most people won't use that. Store all courses on device. So we're going to click on that one. And this is the web address for JSON files. So Google Drive's the easiest one to use by far. Once you've basically created all your courses in the JSON file, and again, I'll show you the Excel file that will help you do that. Current idea is it will build a website that will host all this and do all this for you. That might make it a little bit easier, but that's a future idea to go on. But if you use Google Drive, you just copy the link, make it shareable to anyone who's got a link, copy that link address, put it in there, and it should work. And then the final one here is basically the stop recording. So when you press the stop start button to start recording, you can either basically record a whole new file or you can get it to pause a file. I've got it set as default as pause, which is most people. So when you press stop, instead of creating lots of little files and saving them each time, it will just basically pause. So otherwise you hit stop and it would be like, do you want to save or discard or where you go? So I suggest leaving that on pause, but the option's there if you do want to change it. So we've put this to store all courses on device. That's cool. Thank you for confirming those settings are saved. I'm going to So now when I've clicked load routes, because I've got that option, it basically asks me if I want to load all the save routes on there, or I can clear them and then reload them again. So this saves you the need for basically loading them every time. Like once you've got them on there, they'll just stay on there, and you can come in and basically select load the save routes and then put it on there. But if you wanted to load a different route, you could basically clear them and it will just go through and basically reload them from the internet. So if you've got a watch that basically is throwing some errors and saying there's not enough memory, like can't store, you're probably going to have to not store all of them on the watch and just load them as you need them. The size of the file can be a problem. I've loaded up to sort of 15 courses at a time. You will hit a limit, depends on what watch you've got. 4 to 8 is usually fine. If you want to load more, just incrementally load them, and then if you get a basically an error saying the file is too big or not enough memory, just pare it back down, and that should hopefully fix it. But again, if you do get stuck, just jump on the forum, let me know what problem you're having, we can work through it together. Cool. Creating the courses then. There's a little bit of technical information. So we're looking to try and make this a bit easier for people in the future. I'm going to zoom in so you can actually see. Garmin insists that the file format comes in via JSON. So you can't just use like a GPX file or anything exported from Navionics, unfortunately, or an existing track that you've recorded on something. It does have to be in JSON. Now, whilst that sounds a little bit weird, JSON's is relatively quite straightforward. There's an example of what the file looks like. So if I click on that, it's gonna hopefully show you what the JSON file looks like, which is you can see you've got the name of the course, the date that it was basically created, latitude, longitude, and the name. That's it, and it carries on from there. Once you've got one of these, you could put it in a JSON editor, and you could just go through and change, the latitude, longitude, and the name if you wanted to update it that way. But I would recommend, most of all, is if you've got access to Excel, is just use this Excel template. So that's available in the manual. If you go in there, you'll find the links where you can download all of this. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's nothing super fancy. If you do have a GPX format file, you can import. You need to click Enable Editing, and when it downloads from the internet, it quite often does this.
A few moments later.
All right, we're back. Fun fact, on the newer versions of Windows, it automatically blocks anything that's downloaded from the internet. So you need to save it to the desktop, right click on the file, properties, and then there's a little button that says unblock because this came from a different PC. So if you can't get the macros to run, it gives you a security error. That's what you do. So back here, you can import from a GPX file. If you've got it, you can just select it and pull it in, and it will populate it based off the GPX file that you've loaded. The way you set your routes up in this is basically name, then your first waypoint, name, and then keep going until you got to your last waypoint. So for Saturday course 1, we start at a buoy called Smith Port. We don't start there, sorry, that's the first one we're going to. And that's an important one to remember. It's don't put your starting position in because, well, you can do, but if you'll sail away from it to begin with and then have to click the next one. So it's kind of the first one you're going to, because you'll normally find the start and then on from that one there. So the first buoy we're going to is Smith, and then the one right next to it, Lucky, then Hallmark, then Smith Lucky again, D Road, Hallmark, Smith Lucky again, out of Dolphin, Knot Spit, Poplar, Crawley, and then the finish line. And then if you've got another course, you put the name there and then you go from there. So don't leave any spaces between the courses. Only put the course name on the first one there. So that's basically how the file knows. It goes, okay, there's an item here. I will keep going until there's another one, or there's basically no more lines here. And that is one course. So you just keep adding them in here. The latitude and longitude are in decimal, not degrees, minutes, seconds. Just something worthwhile to note. There are things that can convert it online. If you've got it in degrees, minutes, seconds, you need to put it in there. You have to put it in degrees. It won't the app won't accept it in other formats. And once you've done that, like, and again, you know, the sample file's there, you come in, you just click export route for sailing basics. And you can call it whatever you want, sailing courses, example. Just going to save it to downloads. Just going to open with Notepad, and you can see it's basically just created that in that particular format that we needed. So now that you've got that, you can go upload it to Google Drive or OneDrive, or if you've got your own website, you can kind of host it in there. And you basically go to your share options, anyone with the link, copy the link, and then you put it in the settings web address for the JSON file, and that's how you load the courses in there. Again, if you get stuck or you have any questions, feel free to sort of drop me a line. Contact details will be in the link for this video, or there's the contact developer, or like contact me through the forum. Just make sure you give me an email address that I can get back to you if that's what works for you. Cool. Using OneDrive, there's a little bit more you have to do. You kind of have to sort of cut this little bit of the text out instead of using all the links, so just watch out for that, but it's explained in there. We've been through, again, all of the items that you've got on here, like when you're sailing a course. I'm back. I thought I'd do a quick one with this with the proper fit file loaded. So this is replaying the race that we did, and this is on our way up towards the top mark, which is Smith Lucky, where you can see we're basically like tacking away and we're sort of navigating towards that. So it's a port rounding. You can see I'm basically like 0.3 of a nautical mile away from the mark, and this is sort of like telling me, you know, whether I'm basically above or below the mark at that point in time. So I'm kind of sailing up to it. When we get there, I won't click any of the sort of the up or down buttons, but it will actually sort of navigate around the sort of mark and move on to the next mark in the course by itself. When you get to about 0.1, it converts to meters, because it's sort of, I think nautical miles is good for calculating roughly how long it's going to take you to get there. But once you get sort of within, you know, sort of like very close distance, kind of meters tends to make more sense to people. So that's the reason why that changes. There we are. So yeah, so it's just kicked over to meters now. We're at 150 meters. When we get below 100, it should automatically change over to Lucky, which is the next mark on there. So you should be seeing that happen in the next couple of seconds. Those two marks are really close together, so it's gone on to the next one. Been like, well, you're 100 meters to that one, and now it's pointing at the next mark on the course. So you saw it flick through those two really quickly. They're two marks that are around an obstacle at the top, so you get to one within 100, and you're kind of within 100 of the next one. It's just like, yep, and away you go. It's just off to the next mark there. So at this point in time, I'd have been sailing around the top mark. And then as soon as I clear that one there, you should see me sort of bear away because we're on the downwind run, and hopefully this will start pointing more in the direction that we wanted to go. And there you have it. Tactics. settings, Windward mark. You can basically sail up to a mark. You might be on your first one up there, click set marks, and then you can go straight down and navigate to the mark, and it will basically just always try and pull you back to that one there. This one is slightly different because it won't auto flick through under 100 meters, because obviously you're only really going to the Windward mark and it would just roll through all of them. But you can then basically press up if you want to keep track of the number of times you've gone around. So you go there first, you press up, you're like, okay, cool, now I know my second upwind lap, just for counting on that space there. But that's just the only additional feature you can do. If you're on Windward Lures navigating, you can drop a pin and navigate back to that. Other thing to consider, it might be something you use for man overboard. If you didn't have another device on board that's got that feature, you could just go and hit the Windward mark, and then at least it sort of knows where you are. But I suggest if you're sailing in anything where you're going to be a distance away, having a dedicated navigation system with man overboard would be much more useful. This is not intended to be used, but just good to know that you can do if you're completely stuck for any other options. You can see in the app your lap info if you want. I find most of the information is much more useful having it on the actual Garmin website and going through it in that space there, but it is here and available for you if you do want to have a look, and you can clear that out if you want to. And finally, just to take you through the settings. So talked about the end timer screen. So again, when the timer ends, you can basically select a course, have it all set up, and then it will go to the course screen with that, basically start navigating that course if you've got that one there, or if you've got start sail, it will just go into the sailing screen. So that's all it changes for you on that one there. Background color, pretty straightforward. You have it as white or black. It doesn't affect menus. I also don't think it affects it on the simulator actually. No, that's what it is. It doesn't work on the simulator. So this works for your app screen like that, but your menus will change on the app from memory, but they won't change on the simulator. So just be aware of that. So you can have it whichever way you want. Auto recording we spoke about, so that's whether it just starts recording when you start the app or not. Time to line, again, if you set a line, whether it displays or not, by default, yes. Like if you don't set a line, it just won't do it. The compass, you can change it from true to magnetic. That's the offset if it's set. So if you set an offset and you decided it's not working, you can just come back in here and change it to true without having to grab out your phone and do things like that. As I said, I just leave it on true for the most part. And that is it. There's a lot more detail and context that I've tried to put into this sort of user manual to really sort of explain all of the items that sort of come into here. I think the thing to sort of finish on is I just want to say thank you to everyone that's kind of helped me build this app. You know, I was lucky enough to do a sailing course with Royal Perth Yacht Club. The instructor introduced me to one of the skippers of an S80 called Fracker. I had a great opportunity to sail with some great people on Fracker, and also more broadly through some of the development squads in the S80 fleet, as well as the development squads at Royal Perth Yacht Club, to the point that I now have my own small boat and getting into sort of racing myself as a skipper. It's been a real great, amazing journey, and I've only really been doing it for the last 3 years or so, but I thoroughly enjoy it. So I hope you're enjoying your sailing in whatever form that you're doing. I hope this watch helps you. And as I said, keen for any feedback or any improvements that you might have. But thanks for your time. So if you found this video helpful, please leave a comment below. Again, if it was less helpful, also leave a comment below. It's always good to know what we can do better with these. But thanks everyone.